What's going on, everyone? DSP here, and welcome to another edition of Ask the King. This is actually episode 17, I believe, since I officially started doing this, and lots of questions queued up, lots of good questions. I'm definitely having a lot more success doing this once a month than I was, remember, back when I was doing it every 2 weeks, simply because a lot more questions get to be accumulated, and I get to pick the better ones, I feel. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump right in, because I have plenty of questions, and it's going to take a while to get through this. First question, it says, if you stumbled upon a magical genie, what would you wish for? No infinite wishes allowed, and that is from Bart Flyer. Excuse me, ugh, something tickled my throat already. Bad start. That was from Bart Flyer, okay? And honestly, I thought about it, and you know what? I'm a down-to-earth guy, I'm a realistic guy. Probably the only thing I would wish for, if I only have one wish, is to have my back fixed and not be able to be injured again. There are a lot of things that I used to do before my back injury that I kind of miss. Driving on the highway, you know what I mean? Like, I used to drive everywhere. I used to go to all local tournaments and things. I used to drive my friends and everyone everywhere. And we had a lot of fun doing it with these road trips, and now I can't do that anymore. That's kind of frustrating. Being able to even just do like basic sports, like I remember one of the last things I did before I was diagnosed with my back injuries, I played some football with some friends of mine over at a park nearby, and since then I just can't do it. It's too much of a risk. In fact, when I went to the doctor and got diagnosed, he said, it's a good thing that you caught it now, because if you continued to do stuff like that, my disc would have ruptured in my lower back, and if that's the case, it requires surgery, and it's a lot more risky procedure, and it could lead to a lot of even worse pain for the rest of my life. So I'm glad that I caught it when I did. So unfortunately, there really is no way to fix my condition. I could do therapy, but therapy is just going to build up muscles, make it a little bit easier. It still won't fix the fact that I'll have pain, and I have to limit myself in what I do for the rest of my life. And even surgery. Surgery, number one, might not even help at all, but number two, the best it will do is maybe relieve some of the pain that I have, but I'm still going to have to be at high risk for that disc to be further injured or ruptured for the rest of my life, and I still would have to have the adjusted lifestyle that I have now. So yeah, it would be nice to go back to the way it was. It's funny how you take stuff for granted when you have it, and you don't realize what a big loss it would be to lose it. But you know, it is what it is. That's life. You get older, stuff happens, and I've dealt with it appropriately. So next question, if you had the chance, would you move out to California? And that's from Mr. Brian Busy. You know, I've thought about moving for a couple reasons. First of all, I live in Connecticut, which is actually one of the most expensive states in the country to live in. And appropriately, you know, back when I had a job, a salary job here, actually the salary of the job that I had was a little bit higher than if I had that similar job in other states, because the cost of living in other states is lower. But now, what I'm doing now with YouTube, it's not, you know what I mean? It's not salary, it's not an adjusted, what I make is what I make. So if I were to move from Connecticut to a state where it's cheaper, I'd be able to spend, you know, to get more for my buck. Because I'm making what I'm making every month on YouTube, and it wouldn't be adjusted for per se. California is still a little bit on the pricey side. It's definitely not as pricey as Connecticut. The weather's nice. It all depends on where you go, obviously. There are some parts of California where the weather sucks. There's some parts of California where you're at high risk for earthquakes. But there are parts of California I've been to that were really nice. And I have been to California several times in my life, and I enjoyed every trip I ever had when I went out there. And something is to be said about the fact that there are a lot of TV, media outlets, things like that in California. A lot of people who've been trying to make it, for example, in the entertainment industry, move to California, because that's where really it's at, where all the studios are. Shit, Justin Wong moved to California. He lived in New York his whole life, but as soon as he got, you know, more popular and he got signed with sponsorship or whatever, the first thing he did was move to California. So there are reasons that I've thought about moving. If I get to do this maybe for another couple of years with no problems, and I have money saved up, then I might consider actually doing it. But as of right now, I mean, my family's here, my friends are here, and I definitely don't have any kind of, you know, major money saved up where I could go and do a move. But I have thought about it, and California is definitely at the top of my list. Next question. Hey Phil, I just watched John Rambo's video of his history with GameStop. Now if you haven't seen this, this is over on John Rambo's YouTube channel, John Rambo Presents. He's done several videos where he shoots per se, on GameStop because he used to work there. It says, so I'm wondering why you buy your games from GameStop instead of Play and Trade or anywhere else. And that's from BTR Chaz. Very valid question, and I've talked to John about this several times as well. I would buy my games elsewhere if all the other places to get games at always had them on time on launch day, always had the collector's editions available, and were closer to me. I'd have to say, right now, there's a GameStop and a Best Buy that are about equal distant from me, but I have bad experiences at Best Buy trying to buy games on launch day. I go in there and the games aren't out, the games are in the back in a box, they never unbox them, the game shipment was late, so now they don't have the games, they don't have the collector's editions that I want. At GameStop, it seems like they always have everything. As long as you reserve, you always get the games you want, you get them on launch day, you can get the strategy guide with them, you know, everything is there, and you do get a lot of cool pre-order bonuses at GameStop. Not that that's a particular reason why I buy my games there, but it is cool that you do get those. So yeah, if there were another game store comparable to GameStop that could get everything for me on launch day, that could get me the collector's editions, you know what I mean, I would definitely go to them. But really the only competition for GameStop game-wise is there is the Games Exchange store that I've talked several times about now, where I've gone with John Rambo and we got some retro games from them. But they, again, even then, they can't guarantee they're going to have the games on launch day. They can't guarantee they can get the collector's edition. So it's kind of frustrating. GameStop really has a stranglehold on the gaming industry, at least for brick and mortar stores. They seem to be able to get this kind of stuff. You know, they have the ability to control the supply chain and get that stuff a lot easier than the other stores do. So that's really the only reason why I go to GameStop. Okay? Next question. Hey, Phil. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. There's a common question a lot of people have been asking me. With the games coming up in the next couple of months, all the major releases coming out for 2011 now, these last couple of months of the year, which ones will I be playing on my gaming PC? And I have the answer for you. The answer is Rage, Battlefield 3, and Skyrim. In fact, the beta for Battlefield 3 I'm playing on my PC. I actually had a code to do it on Xbox 360, and I said, you know what, I'd rather play the better version, which I know is going to be the PC version. It's been announced as that since day one, so I'm going to be playing those particular games on PC, okay? Next question. Hey Phil, would you ever consider being a guest on other big YouTubers' podcasts, such as Woody's Gamertag, Painkiller? They could drastically bump up your subs and get you more exposure, and that's from Single Cell 55. Well, here's the bottom line. I don't even know who those people are. I'm being very honest with everyone, and I've said this since day one. You know, I'm not an avid YouTube user. I never was. When I started doing my stuff on YouTube, it's not like I was on YouTube every day watching other people's videos, being a subscriber to other people's videos. And I just don't have time now to even look into it. I don't know that much about other YouTubers, so I have no clue who Woody's Gamertag or Painkiller are. I have no idea. So if they are big YouTubers, okay, would I consider being on a podcast or whatever? I don't see why not. All it is basically you talking with them, you know, if they wanted to interview me or just bullshitting with them for an hour. I mean, who cares? That's cool, you know, and especially other gamers, you want to talk about games and stuff like that. But I haven't been approached by anyone like that ever. I don't know if I'm supposed to approach them, but like I said, I don't even know about them, so I wouldn't approach them. But no, I have had a couple offers to be interviewed and such as like Venomous Fat Man, who interviewed me early this year. But besides that, it really hasn't been that much, you know, no mainstream, I guess I would say, attention, even though even big YouTubers aren't really mainstream. I don't know, just no one's ever asked me. Next question. Hey Phil, I wanted to get your thoughts about something that's rather common but from a different perspective. It's about the companies who make their big releases and choose not to share them on all platforms. So what I'm talking about is that there are many types of games that usually don't give every platform a fair shake. In this particular case, I think what he's talking about is fighting games and PC gaming. So what he's basically saying is, I'm kind of paraphrasing because it's a very large paragraph, and by the way, this question is from Dygar. He's asking how do I feel about the fact that a lot of games aren't coming to PC? It used to be, you know, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Now it seems to be more like Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, maybe the Wii, and only a handful of games get ported to the PC. He wants to know, how do I feel about that? Are they really abandoning the PC? And so on and so forth. Here's my thoughts, and I've said this for quite a while at this point. PC market's dying. It really is, because the reason that most games originally were released for PC, okay, were because it was easy to develop for, okay? It was the most common platform. Then these consoles came out, and they became much more easy to develop games for. And so a lot of these publishers who used to publish games exclusively for PC said, hey, alright, we're going to make console versions of these games, because it seems that consoles are now becoming way more popular than gaming PCs. They're cheaper, and you know, kids can now buy them, and every household pretty much has a console now. Not every household has a gaming PC that can play these high-resolution graphics. And then as the years rolled on, the game consoles actually ended up getting upgraded graphics capabilities that were very comparable to gaming PCs. Now, I'm not saying the top of the line. Obviously, the top of the line $3,000 gaming PCs still blow consoles away. But for the most part, the average, you know, gaming PC, when you compare it to the graphics that are now coming out of the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, they're not that much different. And so these companies said there is money to be made, and then they realized as consoles became more and more popular and gaming PCs were becoming less popular because they were so expensive, that really the market to cater to was the console market. So now you look at games such as Street Fighter, okay? Yes, their games come out first for Xbox 360 and PS3, and then sometimes, like in the case of, I believe, Street Fighter 4, it did get a console release, but it was much later. But look at other fighting games. Tekken, Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter, Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, all these games, none of them are coming to PC. They're just not bothering with PC ports. And I think there's a lot to be said that the gaming PC is honestly on the way out. It really is. There will always be that hardcore audience that love it and use it, and they're happy to keep upgrading it and spending money on it and having the top of the line of everything. But for the common person, they just don't have that money to drop anymore. The economy is bad. They don't have $3,000. Even I know that's exaggeration. You can get one for under $1,000, but still, it's money, and it needs constant upgrading to stay, you know, in line. As opposed to consoles, what these developers are doing, they're pushing the envelope with what they can do with the graphics development, or the graphics capabilities of these consoles. Just look at Gears of War 3. That's Xbox 360 is what now, a 5, almost 6-year-old console, but look at the graphics of Gears of War 3. They're amazing. The detail, the shadows, they're still pushing it. So they're focusing more on working with what's already there than worrying about, what if I sell my game on PC with maxed out settings, how will it look, you know? And I think that they're making out. Take a look at sales results for console games versus PC games these days. Consoles are beating them out massively. So are they abandoning, are these game developers abandoning the hardcore gamers on gaming PCs? I don't know if it's more abandoning than just making a smart business decision and realizing that those days of the hardcore gamer playing on a gaming PC are going out. And there's always going to be a crowd, but they're going to go for wherever the bigger audience is, and that's obviously going to be on console. And that's just a fact. Okay? Next question. Dear Phil, I've been a fan of your work for a long time and particularly like your review series, The Hateful Truth. Thank you. However, I have never seen you give a full 10 out of 10 score for any game. So, my question is, have you ever played a game in your entire life that was so brilliant you'd give it a perfect 10 out of 10 score? And if so, what was it, and why was that game so fantastic in your opinion? Thanks, from Cyber Ewan, I believe his name is? Or it's either Ewan or Ewan. I think it's pronounced Ewan, though. Good question. For me to rate a game 10 out of 10, really it would have to be perfect, or the best version of whatever that genre of game is, okay? And it's going to be hard for me to ever score anything a 10 because I really feel that there's always room for improvement. I think there is. That being said, I don't want to limit myself and say under no circumstance will I ever give anything a 10, okay? So, the games that have come close for me, these are going to be ancient games, so you guys, you know, I would probably say the original Street Fighter 2 series, simply because that is the epitome of fighting games. That's where all future fighting games came from, and really that is the origin of an entire genre of games. So you have to say, all right, that was the beginning. At that time when it was out, it was perfect. It was the perfect fighter. And then after the years, obviously things come out that are variations of it, and they're near perfect possibly, but that Street Fighter 2 series of games was the beginning. Final Fantasy VI, in my opinion, of the original Final Fantasy games before they went 3D, it got everything right. Between the amazing graphics that the SNES pulled out, the soundtrack was amazing, the gameplay was spot on, had variety of gameplay. It wasn't just the standard, oh, you have generic characters that you level up and give jobs or whatever. Every character had unique abilities that you could that they had, plus you could give them custom magic. I mean, everything about the game. The story was amazing. Just when you think the story's done, the game doubles in length. It hit on all cylinders. It hit perfectly. Is it a perfect 10? I don't know, but it's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, role-playing game of all time, and probably a close tie with Chrono Trigger, which is another game that I would probably consider possibly giving a 10. But I'm not going to do a Hateful Truth on those games. But those are close to what I would say were perfect games. Okay. Next question. Hey Phil, I have a question with GGPO netcoding. If you don't know what that is, it's a netcode that was created for fighting games by the people who actually run Shoryuken.com, which is like the mainstream website for fighting games. And it's being used in certain games. It's being used in Third Strike Online Edition and also in an upcoming game called Skullgirls. Okay. Now this says, I have a question with the GGPO netcoding. Since everyone is all hyped up about it in Third Strike Online, I don't get it. Why do people think that GGPO is the best netcode for fighting games? Since you've been in the scene longer, maybe you could shed some light on it. And that's from M40 Assassin, okay? GGPO is different from other netcoding because of the way that it's structured. Other netcoding, for example, in Street Fighter 4, when you're in a laggy match, you can usually tell because you'll be playing and then all of a sudden the game will slow down to a crawl, or all of a sudden the game will freeze up and there'll be a lag spike, okay? And that's traditional netcode. That's what happens. With GGPO, it's coded in a way that it masks lag, meaning the lag still exists, but it tries to hide it. So you might look at the game and there's no slowdown and no judders like there usually would be with regular netcode, and you're like, wow, this game is lagless, when in reality it's really not. What GGPO does in a case of extreme lag, it actually does what's called a run back or a pullback, which is basically, let's say Third Strike, you're Ken, and you do a jump kick and a Shoryuken, and it combos. The game, if there's lag at that moment, might not know what really happened and show you jump kicking and uppercutting the person, but then all of a sudden, and I'm not kidding, you'll see this, you'll even see some of this in my Third Strike Online gameplay if you look at it over at DSP Street Fighter. It'll show something on the screen, then take it back. You'll actually not hit, and it'll show the guy blocking, and his life will go away and then regenerate. And you're like, what the fuck was that? It's like so weird. And some people are fooled by it and think that this is like the best netcode. It's good. It's probably better than the netcode from the other shitty games like Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but it's still not great. It still has the same lag issues, dropped inputs. It just does a really good job of masking it. And so that's why a lot of people say, oh, it's the best. They think it's the best because it looks the best. But when you're actually playing in a competitive setting, you'd understand it has the same issues as all other netcode. Okay, moving on. Next question. Hey Phil, hope everything went well with Hurricane Irene. Didn't cause you too much trouble. You can tell that question's a little old and dated, but yeah, everything's fine. I just got my A-level results, which is what we use in the UK to decide whether a university will take you. Needless to say, I got well over what I needed. 2 A stars and 2 A's, and I'm now heading off to university in October. I don't have any idea what that means, but it sounds good. It sounds like you did pretty good, so congratulations. Okay? Being a university graduate yourself, do you have any advice for someone going to university college and going to be living away from their parents in dorms for the first time? Hope you're well. Regards from Hazard. Good question. Now, of course, you have to understand that my answer is going to be in perspective of U.S. colleges and universities. I never went to school in England. I don't know what kind of difference there will be, okay? But some really good tips for you. I would say, number one, be very careful what you eat when you're there. Because when I went to my college, there was cafeteria food. It was awful. It was probably the worst food you could eat. Really bad hot dogs, nachos, you know, you're talking the worst of the worst. Things that, you know, you will gain weight significantly if you eat this bad food. So I would say you try to plan out a way that you can eat healthy while you're there, because it's not an exaggeration. They say the freshman 15, right? I saw people put on like 30 pounds within the first year of college because they're not living at home, you know, they're not eating nice, healthy, home-cooked food from their family. They don't have the discipline to set out a diet for themselves, and they just go to the cafeteria and eat shit all day, and it's just not good for you, okay? Stay away from the fried cafeteria foods. In addition to that, be careful with your partying. I definitely actually condone that you party while you're there, because this is part of your life. It's traditional. When you go to college, you're let loose. You're not with your parents anymore. You should have fun, but do it in moderation. Don't go overboard, and definitely don't get caught. Because if there's any kind of an age limitation there and you're doing it and you're not of the age, you could lead to some serious consequences, okay? So be very careful, and just don't go crazy. Have fun, but also be responsible at the same time. Don't blow off your studies. Don't, you know, you're there to study. Primarily, you're there to learn. Learn while you're there, but also have fun. Don't, I would say, actually take this as an opportunity to branch out, meet other people, and actually evolve a little bit as a person, as opposed to don't just focus on the studies, don't just focus on the partying, everything in moderation. That's my advice for people who are just starting college or university. Next question. Dear Phil, if a convention in a different state, for example Texas, were to invite you and or John Rambo to do a panel or speak about gaming, professional fighting gaming, etc., would you want to attend? If you were able to, of course. Because the convention I am on staff for May is why I'm asking, and that's from Kai Dragoon. Good question, and my answer is it would depend on a lot of factors. Obviously, first of all, what time of the year this convention is going on, what we already have going on at that time, but also, you know, what do you really feel that we would be a draw if we went to this convention to speak? Would people be there, or is it just, you know, if you're just a fan and you just want me to be there and only 5 people are going to show up, it's probably not worth it, you know what I mean? Especially since we'll be flying out to Texas. But if you feel there would be a draw, people would actually want to see this panel, or have us, you know, do some kind of a segment, you know, talking about what we do and answering questions, stuff like that, absolutely we would consider doing it. In fact, we're going to do something like that at MagFest coming up in January of 2012, and that's down in Maryland, so we would definitely consider it. But obviously it depends on a lot of things. Okay, I'm not saying definitely yes. We need to see logistically, you know, what's going on, cost and whatever. The good thing for us is that that kind of trip is a business expense, so I could probably get away with, you know, writing it off on my taxes, and it wouldn't be a significant cost to me. So absolutely, anyone who's interested in possibly having me do something like that, or John Rambo or anyone else, you know, that I'm involved in, send me some information. We'll talk about it a little bit, and we'll go from there. Okay? We got time for about one more question here. Next question is from Single Cell 55, and his question is, Phil, what are the 5 worst games that you played in your entire YouTube career? So I guess that would be starting in 2008. Alright, I can tell you right off the top of my head, Kane and Lynch 2, completely worthless game. Army of 2, the 40th Day, horrendous fucking game. Body Count, not even functional multiplayer, and the shortest, shittiest campaign. Conduit 2, which is just a complete fucking clusterfuck mess. You could tell no effort was really put into it, or the effort that was misguided. Awful, awful game. Number 5, I'm not so sure. Number 5, I mean, there's some other games I disliked a lot, but I don't know if I could say it was one of the worst. I'd be curious to see what other people would say, or would be my 5th worst game. So let me know. Post up comments on this video and let me know what you think the 5th worst game would be. Maybe I'll agree with you. But off the top of my head, those are the ones that are popping up. Okay, so that's it for part 1. We're going to have a full 2-parter this week, or this month. So I will be back with part 2 of Ask the King. Stay tuned, and I'll see you then.